Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, guys, welcome to another special episode of the Strength Coach Podcast. We do this every month with Vince Gabriele. He's the founder of Gabriele Fitness Performance and the Fitness Business University, as well as KISS Marketing. He's written, we probably should just call him an author. He's written so many books, and that's part of what we're doing today is talking about his new book, The Ultimate Guide to Small Group Personal Training. Vince, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing okay. You know, I'm not even kidding. Like when you sent me a copy and I was looking at, the other things by Vince, right? I was like, oh my God, man. I mean, and never mind that when we talked about it on this podcast too, is the newsletter, you're writing every day but the number of, it's crazy, dude. You're an author.
I like to write. I often said my life is lived in a Google Doc, and I just enjoy it. I enjoy that life. I enjoy running companies too. But if I had my choice, you put me in a cottage, give me a computer, and let me write. But I do realize if you don't live life and if you don't experience business, there's nothing to write about. It's like, what are you supposed to write about? Like, how do I write any of these books without having a gym and going through all the bullshit that I went through to do it? So that's why I also own a marketing agency, and it's not an easy business to run a marketing agency, but it gives me a ton of stuff to experience and learn to be able to then turn it into the stuff that I'm teaching. So I'm a little different than a typical author. A lot of times typical authors are doing research, right? And they research stuff and then they produce stuff and they write. I'm kind of living 50% of my life running companies, and then the other 50% teaching about running companies. So it's a little bit, and I enjoy that balance. I think if I'd probably get bored in the woods after a while.
Yeah. That whole, it's funny because, I told you I used to, Michael Hyatt used to be my coach, and there was a lot of people that, really were in there because Michael was a book publisher, worked for Thomas Nelson. He was a CEO, and everybody had the book in their head, and he would talk about a lot of that. And that whole idea of just rent a hotel and, you're going to go there for 1 week and you're going to, to me, I'm like, I would just be like, all right, I'm going to go to that diner across the street first. And then, all right, it's nighttime. Maybe I'll go get a drink. And then, I couldn't do it.
But yeah, that's all the books that I've written have been, pretty much swipe files of my life as a business owner. That's pretty much what they are. They're just personal recounts. Like this book that we're going to talk about today is literally just what we've been doing with our model for the last 15 years, and then what I've been teaching, in the mastermind. So that's all it is. It's just
and I think the value too is all of these people that you're coaching. You have over 100 gyms right now, and getting ideas from them. It's funny because between these two podcasts, TJ Lopez came in with a couple of his coaches for he came to Indy, and we hung out. We had a great night in Indy, and we were just talking. We talked a lot about a lot of businesses because it was nice because there were the other coaches there, so we could talk about some of these things. So it's just cool to see TJ's growth, because I was telling them about TJ's early days of working, above me in another gym, and it was lots of fun stuff. So anyway, the ultimate guide to small group personal training. Again, we've talked a lot about small group all the time, but Vince, I want you to define it, because I think there is a lot of, not confusion, but I think there's a lot of different definitions, and people say, well, it's 2 people or more. And then some people say, it's under 6 and whatever. Define small group for me, what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think the most important term is that it has personal training in it. And I think before I even go into explaining what it is, I think that it makes financial sense, and it's a win when it is looked at as personal training. And I think some people get a little skittish to call it that because they're like, well, I can't call it personal training because it's not one-on-one, right? One-on-one is not synonymous with personal training. It's not saying that like that if you don't train someone in a one-on-one environment that it's not considered personal training. So small group personal training is when a personal trainer works with 4 to 6 people. Again, this is my definition.
Mhm.
And the session can be personalized to the individual needs of the client. That's really, I think that the differentiator between one-on-one is that there's 4 to 6 people. Like that's a big difference. The differentiator between large group is that it can be personalized to the person, right? So if someone has a bum knee, if someone has a bad shoulder, like they can, and again, it doesn't mean in a large group you can't say, oh, don't press over your head, just row it. It doesn't mean you can't do that. But it really means that we're building programs for people, we're making adjustments for people that enable them to come in and get the workout that they need over the long period of time. So that's kind of what it is. And basically, I have two definitions. One's a more a longer, more technical definition. But the other one is, and I go on to say a more simplistic way to say it is, it's just like one-on-one, but there's a few more people. It's way cheaper for the client, and the trainer can make 3 times more. That's like, what other definition do you need than that? Like, there you go. That's what it is.
I love it. Now let's just get into one of your pet peeves. Your disdain is the word you used in the book. First, the word semi-private, because we do hear that in there.
So
Out there, I'm sorry.
I had an argument with one of our mastermind members that still calls it semi-private, and he says like, because I always make fun of it. And here's the thing, I'm kind of picking fights here a
Yeah.
little bit, right? I'm having more fun with this than I do believe um, that if anyone calls it semi-private, that they're going to go out of business. I know plenty of people that are really good at what they do that call it semi-private. So I'm having a little fun with this more than anything. Um, but we would always like, I remember Big Tom who used to work with me, like we're told like, oh, call it semi-private. And Tom was always just like, what is that? What does that mean? Does that mean like, like half the session's got to be in the bathroom or they got to have half their clothes on when they're doing the session? It's just like, and we had so much fun with like the
Yeah.
term semi-private. But here's what I honestly do feel. I feel if you look at the definition of semi means half of. Why are we going to sell someone half of something? You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of my thing. But again, I have more fun with it than actually that it's a technical thing. Um, but hey, Rick Mayo's a pretty smart dude. And he calls it small group personal training. So he actually calls it personal training in small groups. That's what he kind of told on his podcast, which I think is even better. Um, but I have opted for the term small group personal training over semi-private training simply because of I don't want to get people less of something. And I also do think most people they understand personal training. They understand that term. They don't know what semi-private is. Like I think it's more of a like it's almost like Krebs cycle or it's almost like hypertrophy. And it's just like the lay client doesn't know and doesn't understand what it is. Well, what is semi-private? What does that mean? And I think it's like Donald Miller as a line, if you confuse, you lose, right?
Mm.
And I think that like semi-private, it's not 100% sure what it is. Whereas small group personal training, they can factor what that is. It's not like 50 people. It's a small group, right? And yeah, I have there other people that are putting 25 in a group, calling it small group personal training. Yeah, I guess. Um, but at the end of the day, that's what we've called it for 15 years. Um, it's tended to work. And I'm not saying if anyone listening to this is like married to semi-private, you're not going to go out of business because you use the term semi-private. I'm more having some
Yeah.
fun.
Vince,
Yeah.
let me just kind of expand on that a little bit with this idea because like, okay, if somebody else is calling it, if they have 25 in a group, but there is, you do talk about in the book about, you do use other terms like large group and even medium group. So when we're distinguishing between those, I would think it is important because, like you said, I mean, we want to get this right, those basics right, because it's obviously important. We don't want to confuse anybody. What would be for you, for people, that what would be the highest you feel? Is it six? Is like there's no way you should really be doing for what you're teaching, and the because you're not just teaching, hey, let's just make more money. There's an art of coaching chapter in here. There's how to set up your gym. We have a chapter on retention, on how to charge, a lot of stuff. So it's important for me to get that piece out of the way. What would be the number that you're saying, no, you really should have a little bit of a line in the sand here?
Yeah, I personally like the number six. Now, I have guys that are dabbling in seven. I have guys that are dabbling in eight, that are in my group. And that's fine. It's like they're not gonna listen to a hard and fast rule. There's not a hard
Yeah.
and fast rule. If there is someone out there that's a really good coach that can train 10 people at once and give all those 10 people a really good there is someone out there like that. The problem is there's not a lot of people out there like that. And when you want to go hire a 24-year-old trainer that's never trained anybody in their life, and you throw 10 people in front of them that are all 45 years old, that all have a bum knee, that all have a bum shoulder, and that person's running around like a chicken without a head, he's not going to get to somebody like that entire hour, right? A lot of it too is the clientele that this program works with best. Um, I I think that 40 to 60 market, that higher end market, is a sweet spot, because we'll get into price and what it is. Because in order for us to make this worthwhile, we have to charge 50, 60 bucks, for a session. And that's now $400 to $500 a month. Now, my gym is in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. And the biggest complaint we got over the years was Gabriel Fitness is like another car payment, or another, it's a mortgage payment, right?
Mm.
Now it was a complaint we got. They would say it tongue in cheek, right? They wouldn't be like, your place is too expensive, I'm out of here. But our clients would give us the feedback that it's like, man, I love this place, but we have one thing. It's like it's a hefty to stay here, but they were staying there for 10 years, right? So the reality of the situation is, it is for people that are willing to be able to spend three, four, $500 per month. A lot of times those people are not 22-year-old people. A lot of times those people are 40, 50, and 60 that can able to
Mhm.
do that. Those people also have bum shoulder, bum knee, busy schedules, thing like that. They want customized services. They want people to look over them, their shoulder. They want someone to kind of manage their health for them. And that's why I think it fits. So I think when the group size gets too large, um, I don't think you can get to the people enough through the hour to deliver that experience that they're going to stay paying that high amount of money for a long haul.
Absolutely. Now, let's kind of go the opposite way, because I was looking at even some of your pricing, and it does include one-on-one. And you talked about
Yeah.
it, like, doesn't mean I hate one-on-one
Uh,
training. Could you just expand on maybe what percentage maybe you feel like, is not okay, but a normal percentage, or maybe Gabriel Fitness has small percentage. What would that number be? And just kind of expand on this idea about who should be and when we could be doing one-on-one.
There are some markets where one-on-one is really good. Like there's if you can start if you can charge a really, really high premium for one-on-one training, it's a really good business and a really good model. Pending you're paying the trainer the right way and not giving like a really large percentage. A lot of times people give away the farm where they give the trainer 60% of the rate, and they forgot that they have to have expenses and fixed costs and like all those things with it. So they forget all that stuff. Um, so their gross profit is like, 60%, it's or 40%, right? So, but I think that one-on-one does have a place in a small group model, pending you're not trying to scale. I do think it adds complexities if you're looking to scale. So if you're trying to open up 100 gyms, like one of our members, Devin Gage, like he's killing it. He's got, I think he's opened like 5 gyms in 17 months or something like that. Um, he's trying to get to 100 gyms. He's not going to throw in one-on-one in the middle of all of this because he knows as he's opening multiple gyms, that adds a layer of complexity. But I do think so at Gabriel Fitness here, we do one-on-one on our off hours. So we have sessions, in the morning, usually 6 to, noon. And then we do, I was just out. My cousin's son, um, who was doing a one-on-one session when I was just coming in before this. Right. So we still do. My 84-year-old high school football coach
Mhm.
just signed up for one-on-one training at my gym. He
Wow.
ain't doing small group. He's
Yeah.
84, right? Now
Yeah.
he's in great shape, but he's 84, so he's not going to do it. So is a market for one-on-one. There are some people that need one-on-one, and I think if you can tack them on, what you don't want to do is put a one-on-one at like 9 o'clock when you can only make $100 and a small group session would make you $300. That's what you don't want to do. So it's best used on the piggyback hours of on the off hours. It's good for the trainer. It's good for bumping cash because there's they're paying a good amount of money for it. Like a one-on-one client could be $1,000 a month, uh, person. So I do think there's a place for it. I'm not against it. And there's some guys that do really well with one-on-one gyms, but typically those are in the metropolitan areas, the New York Cities, the LAs of the world, that are able to charge super high prices. Because one of the big mistakes of doing small group is charging too little, right? And if all of a sudden you do, yeah, yeah, we're going to do small group because I heard small group is better, and you start charging, and you say you charge $30 a session, right? If you charge $30 a session for a small group and you get 3 people in it, you make 90. Well, why don't you just train one person to charge them 100? Right? It's because that sometimes, like, if the price isn't right, if it's not priced right, it's almost like you might as well just charge a premium for one-on-one because it's a lot easier to find one person than it is to find 3. So that's kind of but they can fit together. They can definitely fit together. Um, the other challenge with one-on-one is just the more people you get, the more trainers you need. And I was talking to my friend Eric DeGotti, the other day on the phone, and he's like saying, yeah, it's like really hard. People are having a really hard time finding good coaches, and people, they see what they can do on Instagram and they want to try and do it on their own. And it's like, Eric asked me, he was like, when you were a trainer working at Fitness Quest for Durkin, like, what did you want? What was your goal? And I was like, my goal was trying to be the best trainer I could be. And I was watching Boyle DVDs till midnight to do it. Right. And he's like, yeah, that's not common anymore. That's not common anymore. So,
Mhm.
so the one-on-one model makes it a little difficult from a staffing standpoint because you need a lot of coaches to have a lot of clients.
Absolutely. And now we do know, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that are still doing one-on-one, for, of course, and a lot of it comes from the big box gym. And then some trainers say, okay, I am going to start my gym, and they're going to have to move into this idea and not do one-on-one anymore. For the most part, they can't do the majority of it. And there's some people out there that have the smaller gyms and they're doing one-on-one and they're still doing it. You have a full chapter on how to shift your existing model to small group. Can you just, before we get into some of the deadly sins of small group training, et cetera, but just give us an overview of your thoughts on this idea of, not, I don't know, I guess the word is convincing, because you had a great story about your first 2 guys, Mike and Mike. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. That was actually, can you tell that story? Because
Yeah.
it's pretty funny about these guys, how they ended up. And
So
then talk
I,
to us
yeah.
about shifting.
So when I started my gym, I was doing all one-on-one, right? And I was training people in my mom's basement and I was training people at local gyms. Um, and I had these 2 clients. It's funny, the guy you just mentioned, whose name is not Mike, whose actual name is hidden. He was just here, like literally just here. It's so funny. And this was
No
like
way.
literally, yeah, this was 17 years ago, and he's still coming. I just
Nice.
saw him like 2 seconds before this podcast. It's crazy. Um, so I I was doing all one-on-one, and when I opened my gym and opened the doors, I was lucky to have learned this model from people like Thomas Plummer, from people like the Cosgrove. So I definitely and Rick Mayo, right? I definitely want to give credit to where credit is due. I am not I did write a book on it, but I wrote a book on it after 15 years of doing it. I did not invent small group. I did not, come up with the idea or anything like that. So I want to stand on the shoulders of the great people that have taught this model to me. And so I was fortunate to have learned that from them. And when I opened my gym, I was going to train people in this model, knowing I had never really done it before. And I had these two guys, and they were called what are they called in the book? Mike and Mike. I
Mike and
sometimes
Mike.
like Mike and Mike. So these two guys, Mike and Mike, and they're both entrepreneurs. They're both like type A personalities. They both had money, so it wasn't like a money thing. They both liked, the personal attention that they were getting, and it was from me. And I was like, that was back in the day where I had nothing else going on except training clients. So I was like, research. They had a bad shoulder. I'm like giving them researching all different kinds of stuff. So it's like I was like their guy, right? And I told them I was like, hey, I'm shifting to this new model where I'm going to put people into small groups instead of doing the one-on-one. And they both started hemming and hawing. They're like, I don't want to be with any other people. I don't want to be like and they thought it was like you're going to the gym, at 5. That's what their mindset was. Oh, I'm going to now be back at Gold's Gym at 5 p.m., not able to get on the exercise equipment. That's what they think a group is, right? They
Yeah.
don't know, right? And so they both agreed to try it. And, after the first day, um, they did not make eye contact with each other during the session. Like they would not address the other person like they were
So
even
weird.
there. Neither of them. Like it
So
was
weird.
like so awkward. And I'm like, fuck, this is not going to work. And the next day, I'm expecting to get phone calls that night of like, dude, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. And they didn't come. The next day came, and it was like kind of very similar um, thing that I didn't talk. The third session, they started kind of like grumbling back and forth, saying hello, hey, how you doing? They started kind of getting to know each other a little bit. And I don't remember what session it was, but there was this one exercise we used to do where people would go down on all fours, like the quadruped position, and they would bring your leg out to the side like you're peeing on a fire hydrant. We called it dirty
Mhm.
dogs, right? And they would always like bust balls when someone was doing the dirty dog exercise. And there was this one point where one guy's down there doing it, and the other guy goes and like tackles him to the floor and starts humping him like a dog. And they both roll over on the ground, and they're laughing hysterically, like while this is happening. And I'm watching this happening, like flabbergasted. I was like, I can't believe these two grown men just did that. And I'm like, and that was the moment that I knew small group was going to work. Now that has never happened again, right? That has never happened again, but it gave me hope that people will enjoy training in a group. So that was that's the starting point of this whole thing.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I think people worry when they're going to transition or and like I said, you have a whole chapter on art of coaching. We're going to go over a couple things, but they worry that, even as a trainer, you're worried like I'm not going to be able to really give them, the full attention. And to be honest, people don't need, especially after X amount of time, right? They don't need you to watch every little movement. Like if they do a great goblet squat, you could be coaching the other person doing something else.
Yeah.
And you're right. So I think that's one of the biggest fears with that is that, but this idea about we put ideas, like you were speculating for Mike and Mike, like you didn't really talk to them. You just said, come on in. Right. But you were speculating how they were going to feel. I think a lot of times, and you talked about it the last podcast, right? The different mindset in your
Yeah.
head,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
four
Yeah.
voices, right? So we're like putting those voices in their head, and I think it's just kind of funny that we do that.
Yeah. Very good.
So talk to us like how, in general, like how would people like think about shifting the existing model to small group?
So I think you have to make sure that you shift for the right reasons. Now, I'm not here to write this book and just tell everyone they have to do this.
Yeah,
There are people that are making a lot of money doing one-on-one and making a lot of money doing large group. And my advice to those people is don't change anything. Like keep doing what you're doing. Like don't just because you read this book doesn't mean you need to change to small group or semi-private. You should switch to it if you're not making the money that you want to make, or you don't have the business, or you don't feel like you're delivering the product, and you want to create a more personalized service, like you're in large group and you feel like, everyone's paying $10 a session and you're getting 20 people a session, and you're just like kind of spinning your wheels. So I think you have to really first decide if you should switch. And a lot of people should, but a lot of people shouldn't. And I'm very upfront and honest with someone that if they come into me and they have a really, really good company and a really good business, I was like, I don't think you should do this. And I have talked some people out of doing it. So I'm not here to say like this is the end all be all. This is the only way to run a gym. This is the only way. This is not. I mean, take a look at Orange Theory. It's probably a pretty damn good business, right? And that's large group. And it ain't small group. Like it's large groups. There are some
yeah,
really, really good large group programs out there. Um, but I've kind of found a niche and a sweet spot in that this is what I've done. This is what majority of the 100 mastermind members that I have, this is the way that they've run. And we found a way to maximize it and make it really good. That being said, if you're kind of banging your head against the wall and you feel like you're training a lot of people and you're doing a lot of activity and working a lot of hours and you're still not making the money, meaning you don't have a lot of profit, it could be that your model is broken. It could be that you're doing large group and if you're doing large group and you're not really good at marketing, you don't have the ability to get a large volume of people to be able to do it, then you're probably not going to make much money because your sessions are going to have like 14 people in it, and you're going to be charging $10 a session, and it's just not going to work financially over time. Um, or you're doing all one-on-one. I feel like I've had a lot of people come to me doing all one-on-one and they're just burnt out on one-on-one. They're just like, oh my God, I can't do another one-on-one session again. My staff hates it. And they're just like fried from it. That's another reason to shift. So I think that's an important thing to recognize first. Is your model busted, meaning you're not making the money that you want to make, or
yeah,
you burnt out, or you hate your business, and then maybe this is a good thing to switch to. I will say that it's a lot easier to start it than to switch it, right? So
yeah,
this is not an easy thing to do. Now, we've helped many, many people in our mastermind do it, many. So it is possible to do it. Um, there's a testimonial in the book from the Varsity House boys, Dan and Joe Riggio, and
yeah,
when they joined my mastermind, they had zero small group. They had all large group. And their testimonial is in the book, so I don't know the exact numbers, but I think they have now 200 small group members. Um, and they're doing well over seven figures and they're doing really, really well. There's another guy, Tony Bianchino, who has a gym in New Jersey, who came to us. He was all one-on-one, all one-on-one. The only thing he did was one-on-one sessions. And he is now majority small group, right? And he came to us because, Bart, Dan and Joe, they didn't like the amount of money that they were making from the large group. They wanted to make more money per member. Tony was kind of burnt out on the one-on-one, so he said, but those are good situations where people they identified that this was a problem, and then they made a switch to a more profitable model, and then their business in turn, changed. And those testimonials are also in the book. So I really call them case studies. There's 4 to 6 different case studies that I picked that were really good examples of people switching from one-on-one to small group or from large group to small group. So I think that's the first thing is making sure that it is the right move. Now, I think people should just read the book because I give kind of step-by-step instructions on how to do it. But understand this, you have to manage your expectations. Um, if all of a sudden for, 12 years you've done all one-on-one and you say, hey, we're not doing one-on-one anymore, we're doing large group. That's not a good idea. Okay. So I think what you have to do is you have to make sure you're preserving your core revenue. And maybe that means that a good amount of your clients stay with one-on-one or stay with large group. And that's okay. This is maybe not be about switching cold turkey and switching to everything. So I think if you are going to switch, note that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And it probably should be done over time, piece by piece. I found a lot of times switching from one-on-one to a small group, which is very, very common. A price raise on one is very helpful. Meaning if you're charging 80, now start charging 120. Okay. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden say, hey, well, if you don't want to pay 120, you can pay 40 and or 50. Right. So a lot of times an adjustment in your pricing model is necessary. But the book kind of has step-by-step instructions. They should read the book and, kind of get that.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, let's talk a little. You have a chapter called The Seven Deadly Sins of Small Group Training. We've actually not talked about them, but we've mentioned this, like, for example, you know, not treating it like a large group with fewer people. You were talking about that earlier. Not one chapter is specifically on not you got to organize your gym successfully to implement the small group.
Yeah.
There's got to be some changes there, but I want to just talk about, because I really want to talk about marketing, how to market your small group training program in a little bit, but just popping it into your pricing menu. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're doing, small group personal training now. And you just really, can you expand
Yeah.
on that?
The big box gyms are notorious for this. The big box gyms, they'll see something like, uh, oh, well, this gym over here, they're succeeding with small groups, so we'll just start doing that. And it's funny because I was a um, client at one point of a large chain gym. I won't mention the name of it. And they included small group training with their membership. And I would go in and I would watch and see, and it was essentially large group training with 15 people instead of 75 people. Like that's what it was. And they butcher it like crazy. But what they do is they think that if they just put it on the menu, right? If all of a sudden you do one-on-one, you do large group, and you have memberships and you do small group, someone's going to come around and be like, oh, let me pick that one, small group.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to work like that. It's not going to work. I believe that the people that have made this work the best, they have made an intentional decision that small group is going to be the main thing they do. And that they can do some other things. Like I mentioned, we still do one-on-one at a very, very small percentage. But the steak, right? I call it like the steak and the baked potato. Like if you're a steak restaurant, your small group program is your steak. Like that's what you sell, that's what you're good at, that's what you focus on, that's what you think about. Um, that's like the main part of your business. And I think the people that have done that, they're the ones that have succeeded. The ones that have failed, where they butcher the programming side of it and they butcher the implementation of it, and they just put it on the price sheet thinking that it was going to be something that people would select and pick. So that's where I've seen it really fail and succeed. It succeeds when you make it the main thing. It fails when you just add it to your price sheet.
Yeah. I want to actually touch a little bit on this, on the programming side under the seven deadly sins. And that was having a workout of the day model. Because I think a lot of people think either, hey, I'm not getting the personalized attention, or, how is this different? So talk to me about that piece of it. That's one of the sins, is when you do the workout of the day.
Yeah, because the workout of the day is a very large group S type of thing to do. The beauty of a workout of the day is that everyone can do the workout. It's like, all right, here's the workout. Everyone, we're all going to do it. And it's just like that kind of fits into the category of large group practices in small group environments, right? Now, I
Yeah.
think you can have a workout of the day, but what needs to happen is there needs to be coaching and training for your staff on how to make that workout of the day different for different people. So that's really the big thing. The big thing is like, all right, we're doing goblet squats, we're doing one arm rows, let's go do it. And they go do it. And there's no coaching and there's no adjustment. So it's really not as much about a programming thing. It's more about how
Yeah.
you train your trainers to be able to work on the fly. Now we have a whole different model in our gym that we do, where we create like 4 to 6 week kind of mini cycles that build on one another. Like Vanessa, my wife, she's a client of the gym, and she's a great example of, she wakes up every morning, 5 a.m., goes to the gym at 6. She's got 4 or 5 girlfriends that she does a group with, and it's like phenomenal. And they were doing sets of 5 on chop bar deadlift, and they were working up to 5, and then they did sets of 3. And then like in a couple weeks after that, they did high reps of like 15, and they were like, "Oh my God, we got so strong!" And then all of the weights they were using felt super light. And she was like, all the girls were like super excited because they used to do deadlifts with 135 pounds and it felt heavy. And now, since they were going up to like 185 and 225, right? And Vanessa was like, she's pretty strong. Like she did the double 88 kettlebell, and sumo, double kettlebell deadlift with the 88s for reps
Yeah.
for 8 reps. I was like, that's pretty good, honey. That's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like in there getting after it, but like 2 weeks later they went lighter and they were able to. So when you build on the cycles, people get into it more. They get excited about being there. But workout of the day, it's just like, all right, randomly doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's talk a little bit about marketing. Obviously, that's your specialty. And one of the things you said, the most crucial thing to grasp about marketing small groups is to not market small groups. So expand a little bit on that.
Yeah. I mean, here's at the end of the day, there's features and there's benefits, right? And no one stays awake in the middle of the night staring at the ceiling thinking, "Oh my God, I need a personal trainer that focuses and specializes in small group and is able to," like no one's thinking about that, right? And so you have to have in marketing, you have to have an understanding of people and what's going through their minds, right? I've talked about this a lot with you. You have to have empathy, right? And empathy is being able to see things through their eyes. So put yourself in a situation where someone like this may be looking to join a gym. What are they looking to hear? They're probably, if they've never trained in a small group environment before, they're probably not going to be all excited about, "Oh my God, there's only going to be 6 people in a session. Oh, a small group," right? And they start to highlight the things that are like important to them and their product, and they don't highlight the things that are really important to the client. And the things that are really important to the clients are more of the emotional factor of things. They're the things that people will look at and look at a person like them that got results, that lost weight, that doing this program. And I think that that's what we need to lead with from a marketing standpoint is a story-based approach of talking about the success that your clients have had, of talking about the benefits that they'll get. What are the benefits of doing personal training? And building your marketing around that stuff, not the features. Training in small group is a feature. And I'm not saying you can't mention it, right? It's kind of like the whole semi-private thing. Like I'm not
Mhm.
saying like, so I'm saying I'm picking fights more than anything, right? But the reality of it is like if someone like we have only so much time to capture people's attention. And what's going to capture someone's attention? It's like, well, it's probably not we do small group training and we only allow 6 people in a session. um, I don't think that's going to motivate someone emotionally to buy. So I shift around the coaching from a marketing standpoint is teaching people to lead with the benefits of the program. What are they going to get from it? What's their life going to be like after? I always talk about the structure of a testimonial. The structure of a perfect testimonial is what was life like before Gabriel Fitness, and what is life like today after Gabriel Fitness, and to be able to get good at telling those kinds of stories. So saying small group training, we do small group training for people, it's lower level marketing. And I want people to do better.
Awesome. And I think what you were just talking about too, kind of really, you were talking about the people, the smiling, somebody who looks like me. And I think it's a good segue into the four things you need to market your small group program. One of those is the first one you put. I love it. I love Donald Miller. I loved building a story brand because I feel like everybody should read that to understand what it is that they're trying to do. And I think what you talk about here is brilliant, like clarity. And you talk about this a lot. Clarity on exactly who you're trying to get to buy small group. So expand on that for us.
Yeah, I guess this is a good time for the Kathy Balsamo story. So we spent the first several years of the gym doing a lot of different things. We trained football teams and we trained athletes and we did one-on-one training. And we did small group training. We had large group. We had a lot of stuff going on. And we ended up having this thing called a sweepstakes where we would give away, and we weren't one of the first gyms to ever do this, but I think this is back in like 2015 or something. This is a decade ago. This is a long time ago. But we gave this thing, we put this offer out where we said we're giving away for, I think it was like 6 week, kitchen sink type memberships where, they would get a one-on-one coach and what we had people do is we had people apply, fill out an application to be selected to win because they would get it for free. And we actually had boardroom style interviews. It's funny, actually, the table I'm sitting at now was the table we used,
No
and
way.
we would bring the client in and interview them. And it would be me, Big Tom would be on the left, another guy on the right, and we had a woman named Gina that worked for us. So it was like they would come into the war room and they
Oh,
would walk in like coward. I mean, and we would interview them on why they wanted to be selected for this. It was cool. Like when I think back now, like the shit we did, it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe we actually did that. Like these are grown-ups like coming into a room with these jabroni trainers, like that are like hilarious. I think back, I'm like, oh my God. So we interviewed, I think we selected 10 finalists, and then ended up selecting four people. One of the women we selected was this woman named Kathy. And she's still a good friend today. She's an amazing, amazing person. And she ended up going on to do incredibly well. Like she I think in the 6 weeks she lost like 25 pounds, and then after that went on to lose like a total of like close to 80 pounds. And I I I shit you not, Anthony, she has kept it off till this day. I
wow.
see her all the time. I see her all the time. I talk to her all the time. Um, she has kept the weight off for a decade, and I'm super proud of her. But she started to, what we were doing is when we selected the winners, one of the things was they had to do was they had to um, essentially help us create content. So I'd interview Kathy and we would do videos and stuff like that. And one day she's like, "Yeah, this is boring. I don't want to do this." And she's like, she's like, "Let me do it." I was like, "What?" Let me do the video. You get down there and you squeeze your ass and stuff like that. And so she starts doing the videos. And I'm telling you, man, this is like 2015, the glory days of Facebook, but the amount of organic engagement that we got from when Kathy would do the video, I'm not lying when I say like 400 to 500 comments on one post. The community just ate it up. They loved it. And we had an unbelievable outpour of people that calling up saying, "I need the Kathy program. I want to be the Kathy program. I want to just do what you ever with Kathy. That's what I want to do for me." And all these people are like, I was like, this is our market. This is who we need to focus on. This is who we need to build this gym around. people like Kathy. And she was, I think at the time, like in her late 40s. So it's like we just said, our sweet spot is 40 people, ages 40 to 60. They're growing families, they're building careers, they're doing things, they're stressed out, they need our help. We have the expertise to do it. We have the model to do it because it's small group and they're going to get a lot of individual attention. They're not going to have to pay $1,500 a month to do it. And we went all in on that market. And that's when the thing just like you went gangbusters, right? And so it was clarity around that. So all of our marketing went towards creating that avatar of a specific person that we wanted in the gym. And then when we started marketing toward that person, that's when everything changed.
Vince, was that? It's funny. I've talked about this before as well. We did one of our strength coach TVs. We did, like your old gym, and then we did another one when you had your new gym. And one of the things you talked about in the second one we did was really starting to get a better like separating some of the different demographics, because you always worked with athletes and you had all these different types of people. Was this Kathy aha moment kind of the time when you started to shift towards, like,
Yes.
as a business, yeah, this like really starting to be like, this is where we're going to really not just focus this program on, but really our all of our efforts.
It got us out of the 50-50 split where we were like 50% athletes and 50% adults, and we were still struggling with those seasonal shifts in revenue where like you would get to August and you have a big
Yeah.
summer and all of a sudden September and like where'd everybody go and where's our revenue and we got a tax bill in October and all that, right? And so it enabled us to build the base, to focus more on building the base of recurring revenue because the athletes was more of a seasonal thing, quarter by quarter. And it helped us build the base of recurring revenue, knowing that it just created a more stable economic company when we were able to grow that part of the business.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Vince, let's finish up with this kind of, you have another chapter in there. We talked about the art of coaching. And I love, love, love what you talked about, because we've heard this message. We see so many, you guys don't do this, but from some of these marketing, whatever gurus, fitness marketing gurus, about, we'll get you 50 clients in the next, 24 hours and you're never going to have to do anything again, like whatever. You're talking about, look, if you're a gym owner and you're not on the floor training clients, sitting in the ivory tower, um, owner's box too long, it'll disconnect you from your business. You've made this mistake yourself. Even if you're not training clients, that's okay. You need to block time to get into the action. Can you really expand on this? Because I love this idea. I love when people kind of they think that, you know, they're just gonna, hey, the trainers will take care of it. And then they lose sight of it. And you need to have a little bit of skin in the game. Can you expand on that?
The best and worst day of a gym owner's life is when they remove themselves from the floor. And it's the best because they now all of a sudden they have free time and they can go home and with their families. And it's the worst because they start getting disconnected from the one thing that they actually built. And two, they have no idea what the hell to do. They're wandering around like a chicken without a head, like, oh, I don't know what to do today. And their staff's looking at them like they're a bumbling idiot because, and I'm explaining myself, right? Staff's looking at them like a bum. What is this guy even doing here? It's almost like you become insignificant in your own company and your own business because you've never really done this before, right? There was no time management issues as a personal trainer, none.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden you have time management problems because you're trying to figure out what actually you're supposed to be doing at that point. One of the things that I think it's a great problem to have, right? Get into it means you've done a good job of hiring good people. It means you've good job of so hopefully leading them well. It means you've good job of building systems. But at the end of the day, you still want to stay connected. And I'm not saying necessarily staying connected with every person and every client. That's probably not possible for everybody. But I do think you need to stay connected to what is going on and what is happening. And I just got back from Ann Arbor, Michigan, where my good friend owns a $80 million company named Zingerman's Deli. And Zingerman's, he has a concept he calls pouring water. Now, this is an $80 million entrepreneur who works the shift from 7 to 11 at night, walking around the restaurant pouring water. And at first you're like, this guy's a moron. Why the hell is he doing it? He's guy's worth 80 million. Why more than that, right? Why the hell is he sitting around pouring water? And he has a whole strategy behind it where he pours water so he can see what's going on. He can hear what the customers are saying. He can see what the staff's working. It's his time to be able to watch the action and watch what's going on. Right. And so I do think that if someone does get to the point where they're fortunate enough to be removed from the day to day, to not get too disconnected and to block time to be able to, we call it spotting. So you just get to the gym, you get out there and you don't have a session, right? But it's much more enjoyable to be out on the floor training clients when you don't have to be out on the floor training clients. You like it more. You end up hating it because you have to do it 60 hours a week. That's when you end up hating it because you have
Yeah.
to do it. You end
Yeah.
up liking it when you get out there and you're high-fiving people and you're in there and you're watching the action. So I do think it's important for people not to get super disconnected, but it's a great problem to get into. A lot of people never get to that point.
Let's finish up. How can people get the book?
Well, because you're a good friend of mine, I'm going to give the listeners of this podcast a free digital copy of the book. It is just the URL smallgrouppersonaltraining.com. And if you go to smallgrouppersonaltraining.com, you can it'll take you to a landing page. You put your a little bit of info in there, and then we'll send you a copy of the book. We'll also put a link in the show notes as well. But yeah, super excited about this. I think it's the fourth book in the series. There's marketing, sales, hiring, and then this is the fourth book in the Ultimate Guide book series. So super excited for this to be released, and really appreciate everyone going out and getting a copy.
Awesome, Vince. Thanks for doing this. This is a great overview. Guys, get this book. It's really detailed, and it'll really change your life and change your business. So, Vince, thanks for doing this, brother.
Thanks, Ant. Appreciate it, brother.